I've been reviewing a number of BIM packages for electrical engineering using the Electrical Engineering BIM Scorecard. It's a series of 10 yes or no questions that you can evaluate your BIM software with. For it to be useful for electrical engineers, you have to get to question number 4, which is, can you insert devices on a floor plan? The first 3 questions kind of talk about whether engineering and electrical engineering even exist. And then question 4 evaluates whether it's something that you could use to replace AutoCAD. There's a lot of BIM software out there, and there's a lot of it that doesn't address electrical engineering at all. I want to do a roundup of the more popular programs that I ran into while searching for BIM software to review. It's stuff that will come up when you're looking at BIM software. You might see it mentioned, but it doesn't really have anything for you as an electrical engineer. As a reminder, here are the first 4 questions that we're really evaluating. The first one is, does it mention engineering? We want to know if the software even acknowledges that engineering is a separate discipline in the AEC world. Next question is, does it mention MEP, where we're separating out MEP engineering separate from structural engineering? And then finally, does it talk about electrical engineering separate from MEP, understanding that those 3 letters are actually separate disciplines? Then the 4th question is, can you insert devices, essentially mimicking AutoCAD for layout of your floor plans? The first program we'll talk about is Tekla Structures. This is a pretty big player in the industry, but as you can tell by the name, it's focused on structural engineering. So they would score a 1 on the scorecard because they talk about engineering. It does not talk about MEP, and they don't really intend to. They're not trying to be MEP or electrical software. Understand that Tekla Structures, it exists, it's out there, but it's nothing for you as an electrical engineer. Next program is SketchUp. This is a 3D modeler that came out in 2000, so it was kind of concurrent with Revit in terms of coming up in the industry. It's kind of a BIM adjacent program. It's for kind of preliminary 3D modeling of buildings. Architects use it for that purpose. There's really nothing in it for electrical engineers. It doesn't address engineering at all. It's essentially a score of 0 on the scorecard. It's been passed around a couple of times. It was built by some people originally, then it was bought out by Google, and then Google passed it off to Trimble. So it's currently owned by Trimble right now, and it still exists. It's still something that architects can be using, but you as an electrical engineer don't need to worry about SketchUp at all. Next, I want to talk about DataCAD. This is another one of those programs that's actually been around for quite a while. They started in 1984. It shows up in a number of the lists talking about BIM software. I wasn't sure whether I should even mention it or not, but their website does include software for AEC professionals in the headline. And since they mentioned E, I thought we should at least include it. So since they mentioned the E in the AEC, that gives them half a point. They don't actually call out engineering specifically. The rest of the software, it's all talking about architecture. So again, there's nothing in here for an electrical engineer to use. Finally, we have Revisto. It's a fairly new player in the industry. It came out in 2012. I don't necessarily love that name. It's a little bit too close to Revit for me, but that's what they chose. They do have a section talking about the MEP industry, so that gives them a score of 2 on the scorecard. But if you start digging into that page, it's talking about collaboration and clash detection, really not stuff that as the electrical engineer at the design phase that you are looking at. So it's really not software that's aimed at the electrical engineer at the design phase, and it doesn't offer anything to you. So if you see Revisto showing up anywhere, that's another piece of software that you can safely ignore and not use. That's it for those 4 programs. I did just want to acknowledge that they all exist, and none of them are going to be ones that you as electrical engineers are going to be using.